Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to What Happened. This is the very first episode which I'm so pleased to bring to you guys. It's been a long time coming and I'm just so glad that you are here. So today I'm going to cover the case of the vampire killer Masten Milimu Wanjala. Before I start, I'd like to apologize. I can hear there's a lot of construction going on in my apartment building. And guys, it's so much. I've tried to wait for it to go down a bit, but it's not. And I was not about to postpone this video because, as you can see, this video has been posted on Friday morning, and I had promised that it was going to be out on the 15th of December, which is yesterday. So bear with me, guys. And yeah, so I'd also like to give my disclaimer that I mean absolutely no disrespect to anyone I mention in this case, and that all the information in this case has been collected from different sources and compiled into one video. I'd also like to warn that this case is about the murders of young innocent children, and I understand that not everyone is necessarily going to enjoy that kind of content, and so it's okay. Take care of yourself, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Let's go straight into the case. Masten Wanjala was born on the 1st of April 1996. That is April Fool's, guys. And for people interested in zodiac signs, that makes him an Aries. This means that he was around the age of 25 in the year 2021 when this case happened. He was born in Bungoma District, Kabuchai Division, and Mukwea sublocation. I hope I mentioned that right. Masten Wanjala's biological parents are Robert Wanjala Watira and Edna Nabalayo. The two had been married and they had a turbulent relationship leading to separation while Edna was still pregnant with Masten. Edna then moved to Machakos where he met his new husband Anthony Ndonyenzao, who took him in and who took her in and together with Masten, and he actually assumed responsibility as his stepfather and guardian. And for the first 2 or 3 years, Masten was a normal child. However, he started being indisciplined and generally a difficult child, exhibiting behaviors of a stubborn child, being rude, refusing to be sent. You know what I'm talking about. Soon after that, he started stealing money from his parents, and also he started skipping school. This was a lot for the parents, I can imagine. And despite all of that, Masten has been described as a very smart student who always topped his class despite weeks of skipping school. His stepfather often punished him when he stole money from home, and when he did all these cheeky things, he would often get punished and he would try to change for a few days, but he'd always revert to the same behavior. Sometimes his stepfather will tie him up, ensuring that he had his meals, but making sure that he didn't leave the house, I guess as a means of punishment and to, curb the indiscipline. But then again, Masten only became worse. He became completely truant, started running away from home, guys, and he would disappear for days, turning into weeks, and sometimes he'd just come back home and claim that he had been working. Eventually, his parents got really tired of this and decided to enroll him in Boston institutions, which in this country are mostly known as approved school. And these are institutions where generally difficult children are taken, children who exhibit extreme misbehavior, truancy. When a parent really can't discipline you, that is where they take you. And it is limited to, I think, the age of 21 years old. And Masten went to one in Kericho and later Kabete. And I think his father also mentioned that he took him to one in industrial area. I'm not sure if there's one there, but yes. So at the age of 17, his mother Edna introduced Masten to his biological father. Remember, by the time Masten was born, they had already separated. So Masten was taken back. After all those years, Masten was taken back to his biological father at the age of 17. Now, in 2014, at around the age of 18 years, Masten was said to have been introduced to sorcery and witchcraft. Yes, you heard that right. And apparently, he went to see a witch doctor in Machakos, and the witch doctor advised that he had the ability to transform his life. And you can see why Masten went to seek the services of a witch doctor, because I think he was generally just a disturbed young man. So the witch doctor told him that he had the ability to transform his life, but only if Masten brings him the blood of a relative. So Masten went home and started deliberating on this. And after a couple of months, he actually made up his mind. He decided, you know what, it is what it is. So he went and decided that he's going to kill his cousin. So on this material day, Masten was left home with his cousin, and his father had traveled for work, I think, and the mom and his aunt had gone for some errands. So Masten was left home with the child, and at which point he decided that that is the day. So Masten went on and strangled his own cousin and drew blood from his body, from her body, and this is the blood which he would later take to the witch doctor. So now, before we even get to the witch doctor, his mother came back with his aunt, and Masten, as if he had not just killed his own cousin with his bare hands, he prepared food for the mother and his auntie. And mind you, this aunt is the one whose child he had just killed. So they ate that meal, and it appeared that the cousin was now missing. So, but they were not too worried about it. They knew probably she would turn up before it was late, and they started looking for her. In the meantime, Masten had taken the blood of his cousin to the witch doctor, who had asked for the blood of a relative. The witch doctor, upon seeing Masten, obviously inquired how he had gotten hold of the blood, and Masten went on to say that he had just killed his cousin to extract the blood. The witch doctor immediately chased him away and told him that he didn't ask him to kill anyone, and that he should have actually found another way. I have a problem with that, but anyway. Meanwhile, back at home, the body of his cousin was found hidden within the compound, and she was already dead. Masten, knowing that he had already told the witch doctor what he has done, he immediately knew that his secret would be out in no time. So what does he do? He ran off and went to live with a relative of his, from his mother's side, to hide out. Now, eventually, Masten went to live with his father, and of course, when he showed up, his father embraced him, and in order to, make up for lost time, he decided to enroll Masten to school. Masten started attending a nearby school, which he only actually attended for just one term and dropped out. And his father just figured out that Masten was generally not interested in education, and he only insisted on playing football and just generally spending time with children. Now, for the rest of the years after dropping out of school, as I have said, the time was spent between petty crimes and, playing football and socializing with children who are always younger than him. Now, in the year 2020, Wanjala's stepsister, who is Gladys Wanjala, came home with horrifying reports. She told their father that her little brother was suspected of killing a child in Machakos, and that he was on the run, and that is the reason he was at his father's home, because he was hiding. So when Masten came home that day and saw his sister, he immediately knew that his cover had been blown, and he fled and never returned. And that is the last time that his father saw him. Now, fast forward to 2021. On 30th June of 2021, a young boy, Charles Opindo, disappeared never to be seen alive again. Charles Opindo lived with his family at Shaurimoyo and was only 13 years old at the time of his disappearance. He loved soccer and was in class 6 at Sagaret Primary School in Majengo. Charles left home for school that morning as usual, and however, that evening he did not return home from school. The father being concerned, he filed a missing persons report on the same day at California Police Station, and the police started conducting investigations into the child's disappearance. Now, around 3 or 4 days later, on the 3rd of July, Charles' father, Tony Opindo, received a call from an unknown mobile number, or rather a strange mobile number, demanding that he pays 30,000 shillings in order to receive his child back home. Now, this was a lot of money for Tony Opindo, and he did not know, he didn't have any idea where he's supposed to get the money. So he straight away embarked on finding ways to get this money so that the abductors could let go of his son. 3 days later, he received a call from the person who had initially called, and that person told him not to bother looking for that child. And Tony has described that call to have been a very cold call, and that the person on the other line seemed to derive amusement and pleasure from torturing him emotionally and psychologically. You can imagine, guys, if a child has been kidnapped and the perpetrator is just telling you not to bother looking for the child. So straight away, your mind is going to go straight away to know that this child has been killed, and absolutely no parent wants to hear that. So Tony continued looking for money, and after 3 days, the abductor called again and asked for 2,000 bob and said he was broke. On the 9th of July, Tony, Charles' father, sent the abductors 950 shillings via M-Pesa on the mobile number given. You can imagine, guys, by the time this is probably someone who's struggling a lot, because I believe no parent is going to, intentionally not look out for their child. So the abductor again called 2 days later asking for another 2,000 bob, and Tony eventually sent 1,950 to the number, since it's all he had collected. He informed the police of this development, and they asked for the number used by the abductors to contact him, and straight away started tracking this number. Now, on the 7th of July 2021, Junior Musyoki joined his peers who he played with football. He played with the team in the evening, and they all went their ways at around 7 p.m. At around 11 p.m., his mother, Felista Wayua, got concerned that Musyoki was yet to come home, and that was not usual for him. He always went home straight after playing, and therefore the mother was very concerned that he was yet to come home at 11 p.m. You can imagine 11 p.m. for a 12-year-old child is late. Now, the family kept hoping that Musyoki had lost his way and decided to go home with his friends. However, Felista Wayua decided to call the coach and confirm whether his son was with him or with other friends, etc. And that is when the coach started calling all the parents of the other children to find out if Musyoki was there. However, every child said that they had left Musyoki in the toilet when they went home. Obviously, Felista, his mother, panicked. They all started being stressed because it's 11 p.m. A 12-year-old boy should not be walking around alone at 11, going midnight. So they went to Biafra police post on the same day and filed a missing persons report, and they still kept being hopeful that the boy was going to show up maybe the next morning. However, all this hope was shattered when The family received communication from an unknown number demanding a ransom amount of 50,000 shillings. And this person threatened that if this family did not raise the said amount, that Musyoki was going to be sold to TZ for rituals, or he was just going to be killed. Now, doubting that Musyoki was okay, following those iterations, the parents asked the abductor if they could actually speak to the child to ascertain that they were okay. The abductors hesitated and actually said that they would only speak to the child if they had 5,000 shillings, and they sent that money immediately. Felista Wayua and the family generally did not have that amount of money at the time, and therefore they did not hear from the abductor again. Now, the family informed the police of these developments and shared the phone number that was used by abductors to contact them. And the police continued investigating, and following these calls that these parents were getting from the abductors, the police started suspecting that there is an abduction ring going on where they were getting young boys around that age, because there were many reports of children missing at that time. So the police really took this investigation seriously, and they kept following up on the case to see if the boy had turned out, if there was any evidence left by the abductors, but they were not finding anything. On Tuesday, 13th July, Tony got a message from the abductors, and the message was written in broken Swahili and Sheng, and it read, I'm just going to read it verbatim. Nitakwambia hiyo keja, lakini mimi juu utakam na mabanga, so wewe nitumie 2,000 juu kipata mtoi hutanipea tena. Nimesikia wanapelekwa Tanzania siku chache. Mimi nitakwambia, but trust me. So as you can see, if you're a Swahili speaker, you can see that is actually it's so broken, guys. It doesn't make sense, but basically what he's saying is that he's basically doubting if he's going to give Tony where the location of the child, because he's suspecting that Tony is going to show up with the police officers. And he further goes on to ask for another 2,000 bob, because he says he fears that once he gets the child, he's not going to pay the money. So as you can see, on the 13th of July now, this is Tony, Charles Opindo's father, is still getting calls from the abductors asking for money. And at the same time, these abductors are asking for money from the family of Junior Musyoki. Luckily, since both families had reported to the cops, it was just a matter of time before they were tracked down, because these foolish abductors were using the same mobile number for both families. So the police automatically knew that this case was connected. And finally, on the 14th of July, the mobile details shared by the families led the parents to a one-bedroom apartment in Kitengela, where they arrested Masten Milimu Wanjala. Following his arrest, Masten Milimu Wanjala confessed to the abduction of 2 boys, and as if he was just waiting for an opportunity to tell the whole world about his achievements, he decided to confess to the police that he had in fact killed over 10 other children. And this was just insane. And for a moment, I can imagine even the police officers dealing with this case, you'd think this child is just insane, because killing over 10 children is wild. That is a huge number. However, Masten led the police officers to where he had dumped these children, and that was Kabete, where he said he had dumped the bodies of the 2 boys. Now, once there, the police discovered that the bodies were hidden in separate places in a forest near the Kabete approved school. You remember, guys, I had told you that Masten had gone to school in Kabete approved school, and I think he preferred that location because he must have been very familiar with that area. So I think he thought that was the best place he would have hidden a body. Now, Upon searching the area, 4 bodies were discovered by the police, and this confirmed their fears that actually this boy was not bluffing. 2 of the bodies were identified to be that of Charles Opindo, and the other one was Junior Musyoki. And the body of Charles Opindo was so decomposed so much so that it appeared obvious that he had been dead for weeks. This means that actually at that time when Masten was demanding ransom from the parents of Charles Opindo, he actually knew that he had already killed this boy and disposed of his body in the forest. Now, Charles, upon examination, it was found out that Charles had suffered a blunt trauma to the head and his tongue was sticking out since he had also been strangled to death. The body of the 12-year-old Musyoki appeared to have been recently disposed of, as it was less decomposed as compared to the other bodies that were the other 3 bodies that were found in that region. At this point, the parents were called to go and identify the bodies, and this must be the most heartbreaking thing, because once they had identified the bodies, of course the police informed them of the development, and Tony Opindo, whose Charles' father, was so shocked that his son was killed by a person well known to him. He said, and I quote, "I have met him in the football field in Majengo where we live on numerous occasions because he loved playing football. I never knew he was silently observing me, my son, and my life, so that he hits where it hurts me the most. My son is gone and I will never see him again. But the pain is not as much as not knowing where he is, and I leave it to God." Guys, can you imagine the horror of finding out that your child's killer is actually someone you knew? He probably saw him hanging with his child and thought that he was harmless. And as we go through this case, you'll see that this is what Masten was doing. He was befriending children. Little known to them is that he was just trying to lure his victims. And you see, young boys, especially from the age of 10 to, actually let's just say from around 8 onwards, they are going to be intrigued with things about football. You know, if you start showing them videos on your phones, they are going to be interested. And these are the things that Masten used to lure these boys and to their death. Anyway, upon hearing the news of the arrest of Masten Wanjala, the parents of Brian Omondi, a young boy who had been missing, went to the police with a photo of their son to see if he was amongst the victims. They were so horrified to be informed by the police that Masten had confirmed their fears. Apparently, when handed this photo by the police, he looked at the photo and said he knew Brian, and Brian was his friend, and that he had in fact killed him and dumped his body in the forest. Now, Masten was so proud to say that Brian was his friend, and he narrated this in such a cold way that sent chills. It gave even the police chills. And you can imagine these are people who have dealt with cases of murder for many years in their careers, but they were so chilled by the way this guy was talking casually, as if he was narrating how they played. Anyway, Masten lured Brian by paying his transport from Majengo area to Lower Kabete, where they started strolling together in the forest. He then attacked him, overpowered him, strangled him, and when he made sure he was dead, he dumped his body in Getathuru River. Masten even demonstrated to the police how Brian had tried to defend himself, and that he had in fact overpowered him and defeated him and killed him. The 4th body was extremely decomposed and required DNA tests to identify the victim. Now, at this point, when Masten was questioned by the police, because of course they were shocked that he had killed these many children, Masten claimed that it had all started with the murder of a young boy in Bungoma County. a murder which he confessed to have been committed with the help of 4 other people, a woman and 3 other boys. Masten claimed to have been possessed due to rituals that were performed during the burial of the said child. He claimed that this ritual that was performed during the burial of that child compelled him to continue killing, and apparently he said he did not feel good about it. The whole time he said this, he had such a cold look on his face and he was very, very calm. And through, you can see that if you are watching news around this time, there were many clips of Masten that were being shown in the news of how he was just seated behind the police vehicle, comfortable, as if he had just been, arrested because of being drunk and disorderly. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, Masten now, following the discovery of the 4 bodies, the police were interested to see what Masten was going to show them. Were interested to see Masten showing them where he had buried the other bodies. So Masten led the police to Bungoma, where he went to show them how he had dumped the bodies of the boys he confessed to have killed. Now, one of these boys was Emmanuel Wafula, whom he is believed to have killed in 2019. First, I would like to indicate at this point that it is not known which of the 2 boys he killed in Bungoma, which of the 2 boys he killed with the help of the 4 other people, as he had confessed. So in the month of February 2019, in Sosio village in Kimilili, Bungoma County, a villager discovered a decomposing body of a child in a pit latrine in the area. Now, the body was later identified as that of 9-year-old Emmanuel Wafula. Emmanuel had been described by his parents as a jovial child who was a class 2 pupil at Kingstar Academy. Now, while it's very possible that a child might sleep, in the toilet and slide off and fall into the pit latrine, the villagers were extremely finding it difficult to believe that such an accident would have happened to a 9-year-old, since the pit latrine hole surely can't be that big to fit through a 9-year-old without any difficulties or without the child screaming for help. Now, it was later established that Emmanuel had been killed. Actually, he had been defiled and then strangled to death before his body was dumped in the pit latrine. This angered the villagers so much, and following that revelation, they now stormed into the homestead where the body had been discovered. And these angry villagers straight away torched the whole homestead and burnt all the crops, anything that they could find within that compound belonging to the owners of that homestead was burnt to the ground. Now, this was the home of the now deceased Haron Jenga. The police later arrested Haron on suspicion of the murder of Emmanuel, and sadly, Mr. Jenga died in the year in 2020 August, and he died while he was still in hospital in Webuye County after battling illness. His widow, Mary Ajega, has said that her husband died because he was so stressed and developed high blood pressure from all the pressure that he was dealing with due to this case, since he had only been, he was out on bond and he was waiting to go for the trial of his case, but he died. Now, at this point, I may want to let you all know that it is so surprising that at the time these villagers were burning down Haron's house, there was a teenage boy who was 17 years old who had witnessed Wanjala killing the boy, but he was too afraid speaking up. And this boy was still in that crowd that had gone to, to burn the house of Mr. Ajega. Now, it is not known why the boy was quiet. I think he was just afraid, or he thought maybe the people are not going to take him seriously. Now, Masten confessed to that murder, and guys, you can imagine the relief in Maria Jagger's heart to know that his husband was not the one who had defiled and killed this boy. However, this was bound to change absolutely nothing. Her husband was already dead, and they had lost so much. You can imagine all their crop was burnt down, all their houses were burnt, everything was burnt, and it's almost as if they were excommunicated. When things like this happen in the village, you have no friends. No one is going to want their children to play anywhere near you. No one will want to be associated with you. So you can imagine how much this family suffered from what Masten had caused them. And also we obviously cannot forget the victim. And it is so sad that after all those years, the family had to start dealing with now realizing that actually the person that had been accused of these murders was completely innocent, and their son had been murdered by a monster whom they probably knew, and they probably allowed this guy to continue playing with their child. Anyway, around the same region, Wanjala had targeted Augustine Mukisa, who was also 13 years old, and this happened in the village of Chwele in Bungoma County. Mukisa's body was found stashed in a sack and dumped in a pit latrine next to his father's house. And it is suspected that after this murder is when now Wanjala actually fled Chwele, that is Bungoma County, to now come to Nairobi in that should have happened in the year around 2020. Now, the other victims as per Wanjala's list, and I say list because what this sick boy had done is that he had a list where he had indicated his victims' first names, and unfortunately, because he did not include the full names, some of the bodies have not been identified. And guys, it's just, doing the research of this case has just been hectic. Anyway, another victim was identified as the 12-year-old Austin from Kitengela. You remember Masten was living in Kitengela, and it is said he was living with his cousin in Kitengela. So now Austin was killed in Kitengela, and he was strangled. Sorry. And the body was dumped in a sewage along General Waringe Street in Nairobi. And unfortunately, this body is yet to be recovered. The police have been trying to look for this body, and they couldn't. Probably the body was washed away with the heavy rains that have happened over the years, and he's just not been found. There is also a boy who has only been identified as Jose. Jose was picked from Lolongo, and just like Austin, he was thrown into a sewer along the road, and that was also along General Waringe Street in Nairobi. His remains have also not been recovered. And I think the reason the remains have not been recovered is because generally, sorry, if you're going to dump a body in a sewer and it's not discovered within the first 2 days or 3 days, and maybe it is the rainy season, surely water is going to come and wash away these bodies, and maybe into the rivers or somewhere else where it might be very difficult to locate these bodies, especially after such a long time has passed. Now, Musa, his other victim, was also found strangled and thrown in a sack, and the body was dumped at Eastleigh's 12th Street roundabout. In December 2020, Wanjala also picked up 2 street boys in Eastleigh and Mathare, and separately he strangled them and dumped their bodies in an unknown place. Now, I know you might be asking yourself how he managed to always get these boys to a point where he would kill them without them knowing. However, Wanjala has confessed to have been using a white substance which was in powder form or liquid form, and he used this substance to stupefy the boys before he proceeded to kill them by strangulation. It appears that his mode operation was strangulation. He always strangled his victims, and he has confessed that for some of the victims, he took their blood. Now, that is so twisted, and if you're thinking that that is very twisted, now just know that this sick boy Masten had a scrapbook where he had actually indicated the names of these victims and the date when he killed them. Guys, this is so, it's so twisted. It's like we are watching a horror movie, and you wouldn't imagine these are things that actually happened in this country and done by such a young man at only 25 years old. Anyway, when Masten was arrested, you will note that most of the news agencies reported that he was only 20 years old. However, this was confirmed later to be a lie, because Masten was lying about his age, because like I told you, he was quite the guest at these Boston institutions, and given that they have a limit of 21 years, Masten always lied. First of all, the first reason I could think of the lies was so that he could continue getting access to these Boston institutions, because if you're 20, you will still get enrolled in these institutions. So that's why Masten continuously lied about his age, even at the time of his arrest. Secondly, if you're going to lie about your age, you're going to say an age that is so young, because if you're going to start hanging out with children between the age of 12 and 13, you're going to make sure that it is not coming off very creepy. Not to say that it wasn't creepy. It was still very creepy that a 20-year-old boy was going to be spending all of his time hanging out with kids who are aged between 12 and 13 years old. So it was his ploy to appear younger so that he could spend time, playing football with these kids, getting comfortable around their parents, and they wouldn't, even those who suspected that he was not a normal person or he was shady, did not push it so much, because he was only 20 and he appeared so passionate about football, guys. And it is just so sad. It's so sad to realize the extent to which he went to fool these parents and these young innocent boys to their death. Now, following his confession, Masten was held at Jogo police station, and this was while he awaited the conclusion of investigation and his trial. On Tuesday, 12th of October 2021, Masten was said to have escaped under unclear circumstances, and it was discovered because Masten was supposed to appear before Makadara Law Courts on Wednesday, the 13th of October. Now, a police signal had been circulated asking officers in the capital city and its neighboring counties to be on high alert, because this was an extremely dangerous person, and he was a murderer, guys. This was a serial killer on the loose, and who actually has confessed. Bodies have been found, so this is sure, like they're sure this is a dangerous man who should not be allowed in the streets. And to make matters worse, when someone like that has escaped, they're also very paranoid, so they might end up killing even innocent people just on the suspicion that they might have recognized who they are. Now, I would also like to point the attention that this case was happening in 2021, and this was that COVID era when the police often arrested guys for breaking the regulations that were put in place by the government to curb the spread of COVID-19. And at this time, there were so many people being arrested on a daily. Now, it emerged that in that cell that Masten was, the police arrested maybe 10, 15 suspects who were being accused of breaking the COVID-19 regulations, and these people they mixed the petty offenders and a serial killer. And what Masten did actually is that he joined these people who are petty offenders, and on Tuesday night, when the guys had been arrested, they started bribing their way out of prison, and apparently Masten also bribed his way out, pretending to be one of them, and walked out of the police station. And this was confirmed because following the news of his escape, a lot of investigation was done, because initially people thought maybe he broke a window. Did he go out through the door? What happened? But nothing. There was no breakage on the window. No door was broken, and he just walked. Now, at the time he walked, the police didn't know anything, and until Wednesday morning, the day they're supposed to go to court, is when the police realized that Masten is gone. Anyway, following the escape from the police station, Wanjala hiked a lift from a lorry that was leaving from Nairobi to Bungoma. I don't know how these guys didn't recognize that this was a fugitive, but it is possible because maybe not all people watch news, and so they were not aware that this was actually a fugitive. So in the early morning hours of 15th October 2021, a boda rider who was ferrying kids to school spotted a young man that looked like Wanjala. And these boys knew it for sure that it was him because they knew him. They knew him through his football days, and they knew, this Masten, the one thing he did to fool his victims is the one thing that sold him out, because he befriended kids so much, and these kids, upon seeing him, they knew for sure that was Masten. And Masten foolishly had gone back to his own village where he is known. The village knows everything that he did, and I don't know why he thought it was a good idea to go there, but I'm glad he chose to go there, because that is when the children alerted the boda rider, who then told everyone, and news spread through the village, and everyone started looking for him. Now Masten, sensing that these kids had recognized him, he took off. He sneaked into a nearby home and jumped into the house through a window, through the bathroom window. And you must realize that this house was under construction, so I imagine that the window was not locked because it was still under construction. So Masten jumped in through the bathroom window and crouched in the bathroom. Now the owner of the said house had commotion outside, and on inquiring, she met a mob of neighbors and villagers who were so angry, and they were all looking for Masten. So she told them she had not seen Masten, and she was saying the truth, she had not seen him. And fearing for her life, she welcomed them and told them they were free to look in the house and see if he was there. And for sure, the villagers and the neighbors went in and looked through the house, and they did not see a sign of Masten. Now at that point, before the mob left, the woman remembered that they have an unfinished window, and it could have been used by Masten to jump in. So she went quickly to the bathroom to make sure he was not there before the mob left. And at that point, the woman was so shocked to find Masten crunching. He was in crunching position in a bathroom where he was hiding, because he knew that the mob wanted to lynch him. And this woman was not about to hide this fugitive, so she ran off and called the mob and told them that Masten was hiding in the bathroom. Masten was lynched by that mob, and he was beaten to death on that day. And by the time the cops arrived, he was already dead, and his body was identified and moved to the morgue. The death came as a relief to everyone. The victim's family had lived in so much fear of him attacking since his escape from prison. And basically this was divine justice. But as much as I know he died, I know it does not change anything for all the families that were affected by his killings. Families were left empty to date, and you can imagine how bad it is to lose a family member just because someone was killing for the fun of it, because there was really no point to his killings. He was asking for what, 10,000, 5,000, 30,000, and just know that this money he asked after he had killed his children. So this is just a murderous person. There is no amount of explanation that can justify what Masten did, regardless of the fact that he had come from broken family or whatever it is that might be used to explain his behavior. I find that there is absolutely no explanation. Anyway, officers alleged to have aided his escape were charged, but later on they were acquitted, and it is thought that when Masten was in police custody, he had access to a mobile phone, and it was discovered that on the 1st of September 2021, a time which he was still in custody, he updated his status and said, "Hello guys, I must die." And die he did. But I want to point out that the writing, the way he wrote die, he wrote D-A-I, which brings me to question, how smart was Masten really? Was he really smart? How did he pass school? We don't know. We'll never know, because now he's dead. Now my heart goes out to all the victims of the sadistic killings, and I hope that they rest in peace and that their families find peace. And since I started researching this case, I've not been able to shake off the feeling that Masten Wanjala probably killed more children, and we are never going to find out because he died. He really got the easy way out, and it is annoying, but it's also comforting to know that he's dead and he's not going to hurt any other child. That is the case of the vampire killer Masten Milimu Wanjala. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, guys. If I left out any information, feel free to let me know in the comments, or DM, or write me an email, anything. My contact details are over there. Let me know. And also, as always, I'm going to ask you to guess what my next case is going to be, and we'll find out when I post my next video. Thank you very much.